In 1967, being an American meant living in an unsettled world. War's shadow loomed, and the draft a real threat. In other areas, there was a desperate wish for justice. Mainstream values were abandoned, embracing new music, drugs, and a search for peace and freedom. Join me now as we return to this exciting time of change in the USA. January 1967. What was going on? Tragedy struck on the 27th, with the Apollo 1 fire, claiming 3 astronauts' lives and forcing a safety overhaul in the space program. In music, The Human Be-In, an event held in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park polo fields, ignited the upcoming summer of love and the rise of psychedelic rock bands like the Grateful Dead and Jefferson Airplane. On TV, the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour premiered, which aired on CBS from 1967 to 1969. Hombre, a Western starring Paul Newman and directed by Martin Ritt, was released with critical success. The NFL championship took place on the 1st with the Green Bay Packers defeating the Dallas Cowboys in the Ice Bowl, one of the coldest games in NFL history. On the 15th, the inaugural Super Bowl, officially known as the AFL-NFL World Championship game, took place. The Green Bay Packers again emerged victorious, defeating the Kansas City Chiefs. This was shown simultaneously on CBS and NBC with an audience of 65 million. On the technological front, integrated circuits were becoming more powerful and reliable, and improved computer memory gave better performance. In fashion, we saw the continued dominance of the mod look. London's influence was still strong, with miniskirts getting shorter and bolder. Going on in February 1967. On the 10th, the 25th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified. This deals with presidential succession and disability, providing clarity on what happens if a president becomes incapacitated. The Buckinghams topped the charts with "Kind of a Drag." Before this, I'm a Believer by the Monkees had held the #1 spot on the Billboard Hot 100 for several weeks. The U.S. Air Force conducted the first test flight of the Lockheed State Route 71 Blackbird, reaching speeds exceeding Mach 3. At the movie theater this month, you might have seen The St. Valentine's Day Massacre, a graphically violent gangster film directed by Roger Corman, which was a great success. The space race began to influence fashion, more directly incorporating metallic fabrics, futuristic silhouettes, and space-inspired accessories. March 1967 seemed quieter. However, opposition to the Vietnam War was growing, with protests and demonstrations occurring across the country with activists and students organizing rallies to demand an end to the war. The 8th saw the release of The Taming of the Shrew, directed by Franco Zeffirelli and starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. On the 11th, Love Is Here and Now You're Gone by the Supremes was at #1 in the Billboard Hot 100 chart. The NCAA Men's Division I basketball tournament culminated with UCLA, led by Lou Alcindor, later Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, winning the championship. Fashion was emphasizing youth culture with teenagers and young adults driving fashion trends, with a focus on individuality and self-expression. It is April 1967 and spring is in the air. The anti-Vietnam War protests continued to make news, particularly the March on the Pentagon organized by the National Mobilization Committee. On the 15th, another massive demonstration took place in New York City and San Francisco, with over 300,000 people. On the 22nd, the Big Mac was introduced into McDonald's restaurants and sold for 45 cents. The movie The Dirty Dozen premiered on the 7th, starring Lee Marvin, Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson, Jim Brown, John Cassavetes, and Donald Sutherland. Its intense action sequences made it a major success and a standout film of the era. On the 29th, Aretha Franklin's classic, Respect, was released. In golf, the Masters tournament took place. Roberto da Vicenzo won the tournament. However, famously, he signed an incorrect scorecard which resulted in him being awarded second place instead of a playoff with Bob Golby. A lot was happening in technology. The ATS-3 satellite marked a significant advance in weather forecasting and communication. The Surveyor 3 probe landed on the Moon on the 20th. The first Boeing 737 took its maiden flight. In mainstream fashion, the hippie movement began to make its presence felt. While still an underground trend, the influence of bohemian styles, including flowing dresses, floral prints, and ethnic-inspired accessories started to emerge. May 1967 and summer is on the rise. Elvis Presley married Priscilla Beaulieu on the 1st of the month in a secretive 8-minute ceremony at the Aladdin Hotel in Las Vegas. The wedding was tightly planned to avoid the media. The Six-Day War made big news in the USA. It was between Israel and neighboring Arab states and had significant implications for U.S. foreign policy and its relationships in the Middle East. In music, The Happening by the Supremes was a #1 hit in the middle of the month, while Groovin' by the Young Rascals began its ascent to the top of the charts. The Kentucky Derby, the first leg of the Triple Crown, saw Proud Clarion emerge as the winner. The 1967 Indianapolis 500 was famously dominated by Parnelli Jones in the revolutionary STP Paxton turbo car, but with just 3 laps remaining, a $6 transmission bearing failed. A.J. Foyt seized the lead and claimed his 3rd Indy 500 victory. The United States continued its efforts in the space race, with events like the launch of Lunar Orbiter 4. In June 1967, upcoming vacations were in people's minds. The 12th saw the landmark Loving versus Virginia Supreme Court ruling, legalizing interracial marriage and marking a major civil rights victory. The 25th saw the first global TV show, The Our World broadcast. The Beatles performed All You Need Is Love live via satellite and watched by over 400 million people worldwide. The 1967 U.S. Open golf tournament was won by Jack Nicklaus. He set a new U.S. Open scoring record of 275, finishing 4 strokes ahead of Arnold Palmer at Baltusrol Golf Club in Springfield, New Jersey. The Monterey Pop Festival helped to propel artists like Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, and The Who into the mainstream. The Carol Burnett Show debuted, becoming one of the most beloved variety shows in TV history. The development of ARPANET, the precursor to the Internet, was well underway. While not for public use, the groundwork laid in 1967 was critical. In fashion, floral headbands, tie-dye, and fringe became popular festival wear, and this look began to permeate everyday style. July 1967. Summer took hold. This year is remembered for the intense racial unrest that gripped many American cities, along with the escalating Vietnam War. This all became known as the Long Hot Summer, with civil disturbances in cities such as Michigan, Newark, New Jersey, and Detroit, where the military was used to control the riots, which were the deadliest and most destructive in U.S. history. Counterculture thrived when San Francisco's Haight-Ashbury district became the center of the movement, with live performances and communal gatherings becoming common, fueled by albums being released like the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, Jefferson Airplane's Surrealistic Pillow, and The Doors' Strange Days. On the 11th, the 38th Major League Baseball All-Star Game took place at Anaheim Stadium, California. The National League won 2-1 in a thrilling 15-inning game. In golf, Catherine Lacoste made history by winning the U.S. Women's Open, the first international player and only amateur to win this title. Meanwhile, Dawn January claimed victory in the PGA Championship after an 18-hole playoff. August 1967 was vacation time. The Vietnam War continued to be a major focus, with ongoing military operations and political discussions. Thurgood Marshall made history on August 30, 1967, becoming the first African-American Supreme Court justice. He was nominated by President Lyndon B. Johnson, recognizing his career as a civil rights attorney. In the Heat of the Night, directed by Norman Jewison and starring Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger, premiered, later winning the Academy Award for Best Picture. Point Blank, influential for its innovative editing and visuals, directed by John Berman and starring Lee Marvin, is released. Feeling undervalued despite their immense success in crafting the Motown sounds, Holland Dozier Holland left Motown after a bitter dispute with Berry Gordy Jr. over profit sharing and royalties, resulting in a lengthy legal battle. On the 19th, Mariner 5, a NASA spacecraft, conducted a close flyby of Venus, confirming that it had an extremely dense, carbon dioxide-rich atmosphere with high surface temperatures. The HP 2116A, Hewlett-Packard's first mini-computer, was released. Marking their entry into the computing market, it cost up to $50,000 for the top-of-the-range 32K version, which is over $481,000 in today's money. September 1967. Summer is starting to fade. Later on the 4th, the U.S. Marines launched Operation Swift in the Quang Nam and Quang Tin provinces of South Vietnam. It aimed to counter North Vietnamese army activity, which had ambushed 2 Marine companies, leading to heavy casualties. On the 15th, a mobile riverine force convoy, including U.S. Navy sailors and Army troops, was ambushed by the Viet Cong in the Mekong Delta, resulting in 7 American fatalities and over 100 wounded, making it one of the Navy's costliest actions. A wave of new TV shows debuted, notably Ironside on NBC, The Flying Nun on ABC, Spider-Man, the animated series on ABC. The Letter, the song by the American rock band The Box Tops, famous for its raw, blue-eyed soul sound and the distinctive vocals of lead singer Alex Chilton, stayed at #1 in the Billboard charts for 4 weeks. Fashion Island opened in Newport Beach, California, one of the first outdoor shopping malls. It quickly became a significant retail destination, featuring major department stores and numerous specialty shops. Fashion featured miniskirts and bold geometric print, with a bohemian influence bringing flowing silhouettes and ethnic-inspired patterns. October 1967, fall is coming. On the 21st, 100,000 people gathered at the Lincoln Memorial in Washington, D.C. to protest against the Vietnam War, with 35,000 to 50,000 then marching to the Pentagon. On October 13th, President Johnson signed an executive order, extending affirmative action programs to include women in an effort to end gender discrimination within the U.S. government. On the 26th, the government announced that it would eliminate draft deferments for individuals who violated draft laws, including burning draft cards or interfering with military recruitment. The American Basketball Association, launched on October 13, 1967, with 11 teams, aiming to challenge the established NBA, introducing innovations like the three-point shot and a red, white, and blue ball. It merged with the NBA in 1976. Rowan and Martin's Laugh-In pilot landed. Though it officially premiered in 1968, the pilot aired in this year. On the 26th, Wait Until Dark was released. Starring Audrey Hepburn as Susie, a recently blinded woman, who encounters a criminal who attempts to find the whereabouts of a doll filled with heroin that she unwittingly possesses. To Sir with Love is the theme song from the 1967 British film of the same name. It was performed by Lulu, who also starred in the movie. It went on to become the #1 single of 1967 on the Billboard 100 chart. November 1967, it was getting colder, while heavy fighting continued in the Battle of Dak to near the Cambodian border. There were many casualties on both sides, but the U.S. won on Thanksgiving Day. November 11th, 3 American prisoners of war were released by the Viet Cong and turned over to anti-war activist Tom Hayden in Cambodia. The Public Broadcasting Act was signed into law by President Lyndon B. Johnson, establishing the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The FCC and AT&T decided to establish the emergency number 911. It was implemented in February the following year. It was chosen because it is easily remembered, and at the time no area codes used it. On the 9th, NASA launched the first Saturn V rocket, successfully carrying the Apollo 4 test spacecraft from Cape Kennedy into Earth orbit. Rolling Stone magazine launched. The first issue of Rolling Stone magazine was published in San Francisco on November 9th, becoming a significant voice in music and counterculture. Music released included Incense and Peppermint by the Strawberry Alarm Clock. This reached #1 at the end of the month. I Heard It Through the Grapevine by Gladys Knight and the Pips. Yes, they were the first to sing it. And How Can I Be Sure by the Young Rascals. In fashion, the use of synthetic fabrics like polyester and acrylic became more widespread, contributing to the democratization of fashion. December 1967. The holidays are coming. On the 15th, the Silver Bridge connecting Point Pleasant, West Virginia, and Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed, killing 46 people. On the 6th, the United U.S. Marine Captain Donald Cook died of malaria in captivity. He endured nearly 4 years at a prison camp in Vietnam, prioritizing fellow prisoners' welfare, and was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor for his unwavering heroism. The Cray CDC 7600, designed by Seymour Cray, was announced. At a cost of $5 million in 1967 or $48 million in today's money, it achieved speeds around 10 times faster than its predecessor. The Jimi Hendrix Experience released their second album, Axis, Bold as Love, on December 1st. It is recognized as one of the most influential guitar albums of all time. Movies released for the holiday season included, on the 11th, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner? On the 19th, Dr. Dolittle. On the 21st, The Graduate. And on the 29th, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. USA fashion in 1967 was revolutionary. Miniskirts, A-line silhouettes, and bold colors and prints dominated. We hope you enjoyed this video and thank you for watching. We would love you to subscribe, comment, and like. It not only keeps you updated on our next video presentations, but also gains us more viewers. Thank you for watching, and we hope to see you soon.